6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Cosmic Career Chats. I'm Dr. Natasha Wilkerson with the Cosmic Leap Foundation, and today we have an incredible guest that I'm so excited to introduce. So a little bit about her first. So Debbie Ramos Trainor is a retired NASA International Spaceflight Training Manager with over 30 years service in the Air Force and NASA. She played a key role in training astronauts and mission controllers for space missions, including serving as a training manager for the first crew to fly on the International Space Station. She's a proud Texan. Debbie grew up in Pasadena, attending St. Pius V. Is that how you say it?
Yes.
Sam Rayburn High School, San Jacinto College, and the University of Houston Clear Lake, where she earned degrees in computer science, mathematics, and business administration. So, in her career at NASA Johnson Space Center, she worked as part of the elite mission operations team. She led astronaut candidate training, preparing future space explorers for their mission. Debbie's also an active member of the NASA Alumni League, engaging in STEM outreach, just like here today, to inspire the next generation. She's also an author and shares her journey in this book, Tortillas to Astronauts, An Unexpected Journey. Well, Debbie, thank you so much for being here on Cosmic Career Chats.
Yes, thank you for having me.
And so I think it's kind of funny that your last name is Trainor and you ended up training astronauts. Was that just something always in your mind that you needed to train people with the name?
It seems like it. It was just really coincidental that I got married in 1992. That's when I got the Trainor name. And then I became a spaceflight training instructor in 1993, shortly afterwards. And ironically, the mail code at that time for that organization was DT. So a lot of the astronauts still call me DT when they run into me.
Well, sounds like it was a perfect fit that was meant to be.
Yes. And even though, I'm divorced now, even my ex was like, oh, yeah, you need to keep the Trainor name.
Well, let's jump in. And I will say the students that are going to be watching are part of Space Club, and one of their missions is astronaut training. So I'm excited to be able to hear a little bit about your story and your role in training astronauts. So tell us more.
So I was very fortunate that my very first job at the Johnson Space Center was actually as a secretary. But I was a secretary in an engineering branch. And thankfully for me, the engineers in that branch were just so helpful. And all the correspondence, again, this was back in the day, we had 12 engineers in that engineering branch, and there was only one computer for all those engineers, and it was by the secretary's desk. So they were always asking me questions about that computer, even though I was, so I learned a lot about it. And the correspondence I typed up for their engineering projects just interested me, and they answered my questions. And I just decided at that point, maybe I could become an engineer. And like I mentioned, once I got my bachelor's in math, that qualified me to be a spaceflight training instructor. So I went and was training astronauts and mission controllers how to use the computers for the space station, and also helping with some computer-based training for the shuttle program. So the picture you see is me and one of the shuttle trainers.
I love it. All right. So my next question, how did you become an astronaut trainer? You gave us a little bit of a preview of that question.
Yes. And so I kind of flipped it there. So that is basically how I got into that training.
And so this is you looking like a secretary?
Yes, that's the secretary one. Yeah, and it's basically going from that secretarial role to the training part of it. I did start as that spaceflight training instructor and then moved up. So it was really such a great progression to start as that astronaut trainer, from being a secretary to, as you mentioned in my bio, to working for the first crew. I was the training manager for the first crew for the International Space Station. You know, as my book says, totally an unexpected journey. Never saw myself uh, in, in the spaceflight world to begin with, much less responsible for such a key part of the building the space station itself. And also my 1 year in Russia that I spent as an astronaut trainer was something I never saw. From that secretarial role to becoming a trainer to becoming a manager in training was quite an experience.
A side question. Was space something you were always interested and excited about, or is it something that you really unexpectedly went into?
Well, ironically, it's back in the day when Star Trek was one of the favorite shows to watch. I was very much a Star Trek fan, and I loved the idea of space, but it obviously never seemed like a reality that I would ever be part of. And what's so crazy is that I mentioned it in my book, and the graphic designer for my book, even though we had never met and I didn't request it, there's for anybody that gets my book, there is this. If you look closely, there is a USS Enterprise on the cover of my book.
Love it.
But as you mentioned in my bio, part of my Air Force journey took me to Ellington Field, where I was working, and lucky for me, there is a NASA hangar. And I would hear stories of the KC-135, which is called the Vomit Comet.
Yeah.
Because it would simulate weightlessness. And so there were some people that didn't enjoy it as much. But that's basically when I got the actual, modern day space bug of listening to all the different experiments and things the astronauts were doing at the NASA hangar. And that's when I decided I wanted to work at NASA and got my foot in the door as the secretary.
I love that. And I imagine your role, you're not working alone. So I want to know more about teamwork and how it's important in a space mission.
Yes, exactly. I mean, space, it's surely anybody can understand that working on a space mission, it's going to space is complicated. There's a lot to consider. And you have a team of experts that's their job to know about a particular system or operation or process. And you all come together just like you would in any sport. You can't have just offense, you can't have just defense. You got to work together to produce a good game. So just like that, you have a good team of experts that work together to make sure the mission is accomplished safely. And there you see a picture of all the experts we had. It's kind of hard to tell, but the first crew for the International Space Station is in that picture. And I'm in there as well, of course. It's hard to spot me, but
yeah,
I'm there. but yes. And so for basically 3 years, we worked to get all the requirements met safely of what we wanted the crew to accomplish on their mission. And they worked hard. The crew worked hard with everyone to understand exactly their role in the systems that they had to deal with.
And you mentioned, the crew going to the International Space Station. So let's talk about what are the benefits of the International Space Station?
Yes, definitely. It's a shame, if for any government agency, they're basically not allowed to spend public, tax dollars to promote themselves. So it's unfortunate that a lot of times people don't understand exactly how much benefit the space station or any other government agency, other than the military. The military can advertise for recruiting, but the rest of us, we basically have to kind of go out and tell people that the working, as mentioned, going to space is difficult, and there's a lot of scientists and engineers that work hard to go through these challenges of having the equipment that's available in space. And that is how we, everybody's cell phone, these reflective glasses, and they're different things, fire protection for firefighters, different things that are in everyday life. And every single year, there is, if you go to the nasa.gov website, there is something called NASA spinoffs. And that basically lets you know what new technology or benefits have come from the space station program that particular year. And it's been produced every single year. So it's not only just the challenges of space, but actually having experiments taken to the space station, because they can do so much more in space. Some of the bacteria and crystals can grow quicker without gravity than it can here. So these astronauts that you see on the space station, there's like the one for, it's Karen Nyberg with something that's about to go in her eye. And it's a known, obviously when the astronauts are in space, their body's affected differently. So their eyes are something that can get affected. So the solution that they have for astronauts to deal with some of the challenges of space is actually one of the most popular solutions on the market for, optometry type stuff.
Wow.
Yes. So there are plenty of benefits for space. There's one crew, their crew patch, it said, off the planet for the planet.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we often hear about astronaut ice cream and all kind of these silly things that you sell in the gift shop. But it's important for students and the public to recognize all of these advancements in science and technology because of the work of NASA and different partners. So that was one I didn't know.
Yeah, and I mean, seriously, you could go up to any person and they have no idea that they're wearing something, they're using something that came from space technology.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so students listening, go to the website and let's wow your family or friends on something that they may not have known was because of a mission to space.
Exactly, yes.
All right, one final question. Something in Space Club that students often struggle with is persevering through a challenge. So we kind of throw some tricky projects at them, and they have to work together and they have to persevere. Maybe things keep breaking and not working the way they're supposed to. So I want to hear from you a time you had to overcome an obstacle and how you handled it.
Yes, definitely. As I mentioned, space is not easy. Negotiating different with international partners for space can be challenging as well, trying to fit everything in place. As a training manager and a U.S. training manager, the U.S. was responsible for integrating all the training that was needed for any particular crew. And so one of the challenges when people may not realize this, but there was originally Space Station Freedom that did not include the Russian Space Agency. And then the Russians came on board, and then it became the International Space Station. But the Space Station program as a whole had already been going for a couple of years or more. It was already decided English was going to be the language of operations. And then we had Russians in our program with Russian vehicles. So all of a sudden, astronauts needed to know Russian. And there were many, all of their training instructors did not know English. So we had this little problem of just getting basic information in English for our astronauts to have that information before they traveled to Russia to learn the technical side of things. And the U.S. did not want that trip to Russia to be a language lesson as well as technical. So I worked on a team to get Russian mock-ups and simulators at the Johnson Space Center, so that our U.S. astronauts could have some familiarization before going through that, and we could get a curriculum. And we were working with the Russians for sad to say, I mean, a couple of years to try and just get a curriculum to understand things. And we already had astronauts that had flown through the NASA Mir program to their Mir space station, and they also had to learn the same vehicle, the Soyuz. So the pictures you see on the left is me in my younger days, my very first trip to Russia in 1996, in the actual Russian Soyuz simulator at the Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center in Star City, Russia. The picture on the right is my retirement picture in 2014 in that simulator that I negotiated with the Russians to have at the Johnson Space Center that is still there. So it was just a unique opportunity to try and work through with the Russians. And one of the ways I chose to overcome that obstacle was, we were going at it was, please give us this information. And they couldn't, because a lot of times they didn't even have the information in Russian that we needed to put it in English. So I basically put my own Soyuz training flow together based on information from our astronauts that had already flown to their Mir space station. And I just let them redline it as much as they want. I knew it wasn't going to be perfect, but at least they had something to work from instead of just starting from scratch of what they didn't have yet. So it was great to be able to be part of that process. And every time I go to Building 9, that's where all the mock-ups and simulators are. I look at my little simulator that's still there.
Oh, that's so cool. Well, thank you so much for joining me on Cosmic Career Chats. I'm going to ask you one final question.
Mhm.
There's students going to be watching, maybe they're elementary, middle, or high school. What advice do you have for them if they're, really interested in space, but they don't really know what they want to do?
Yes. Well, number one, I would suggest getting my book. Kind
Yeah,
of.
we will link that below.
Yes, it really did. I wrote the book because I feel so unbelievably blessed for the opportunities and experiences that I've had. That, growing up in Pasadena, Texas, as a Mexican, from a Mexican American family, that before my generation, no one went to college, so definitely not something I ever imagined for myself. So there's many lessons I learned along the way. And one of the reasons why it's called Tortillas to Astronauts is just like the tortilla is a good foundation for any Mexican meal, you need a good foundation around you for whatever you choose to pursue.
Oh,
And
that's good.
yes, yes. And I mean, I was blessed with, a great family and friends, and my St. Pius the Fifth, that they were truly a good foundation. And I know some people may not have that same thing, but it also, building a good foundation also means making sure you don't take in negativity. Keep those bad um, vibes away,
Mhm.
basically.
Yep.
But there's just different things that, also a very big important thing is to believe in yourself. A lot of times we are much stronger than we give ourselves credit for. And if you don't believe in yourself, then it's going to be difficult for others to believe in you. So those are two big points that no matter what you choose to do, regardless of if it's space, it may seem like it's that unapproachable thing, but those two basic things can get you through just about anything.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, thank you again so much for joining me here today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.